financial problems, elder law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by Thav Gross. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Hi, welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Jenny Lingo back with us again. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, Ken.
Brian Small.
A pleasure, Ken, to be here.
David Einstein, my co-host.
How you doing, Ken?
Along with Brian Small, my co-host, and Jenny, my co-host. Here's what we're going to do. This segment of the realism of the day for this segment is going to be how to do a personal turnaround in 2015.
Ooh, my favorite.
Part 1. This is going to be a two-parter. It'll carry over into the next segment of the show, but I want to start off with segment 1, and we're going to kind of chart out what the approach is to do a personal turnaround. We have steps. Step number 1. You need to make an assessment of where you are today so you creates your baseline to know where you go from there. So what do you do in this assessment? You need to look at your assets. Where do you stand on your house? What's the market value of it? How much do you owe on it? Where is your retirement account at? What's the balance there? What do you have in the way of a savings or security account that's not a retirement account for, emergency fund, things like that? What are your liabilities? Do you have credit card debt? How much? Other bills, student loans. You need to do the analysis of your assets and your liabilities, and then you need to create an income and an expense budget. You need to look at what's your gross income, what's your net income, and then what are your monthly expenses, and where does that leave you at the end of the month? Brian does budgeting all the time. He's completely in tune with that kind of concept. He's a very budget-oriented guy anyway. If you spend an extra 3 cents on a candy bar, Brian's going to know about it. So and he's a good guy to have in an organization because you need someone to keep track of the pennies.
You know what? The pennies add up. The dollars add up. And that's what it's all about. The bottom line is if you're in debt, you got to get rid of the debt. And once you've gotten rid of the debt, now what do you do with your disposable income? How does it protect your future?
Did your grandfather say a penny saved is a penny earned?
I'm sure he did.
Did yours?
Nickels and dimes, millions of times.
Of course he wouldn't have said what I wanted him to say. Jenny, what about your grandfather? Did he say that?
I did not meet them, so I'm not sure.
My grandfather used to say that, and I never really put that expression into the proper perspective, because if you think about it now, if your spending is always constant and it doesn't change, then anytime you have an opportunity to trim 1 cent on your spending, it actually ends up going into your savings account if everything else is staying constant. So it's a truism that has greater value than I think it is given, because it's usually attributed to just being one of those things that the grandfather says.
It does not apply, though, to the federal government, because it costs 1.68 cents to make a penny.
There you go. Well, we do have some problems with pennies.
Well, isn't the
There's no
saying
question
a
about that.
penny earned is a government oversight?
Well, there you go.
Oh, I like that.
I like that one. All right, so now, step 2. I want to do a case study. Our imaginary couple is going to be called Phil and Sarah for this case study.
We'll see if you can remember that.
Wait. Are Mike and Rita dead?
Mike and Rita are fine. They're living well. They've made their turnaround.
They went through the 2-step process?
They went through the 3-step process. Things are good for Mike and Rita. I'm giving them a rest for at least this week and next week.
Before we get into the schedule, though, you talked about looking at where you are now, but don't you also have to look at those things that you know you're going to have to deal with? If you have kids on the verge of college, if you've got a loan that's about a second mortgage or something that's about to balloon, things of that nature.
Absolutely. You got to take into account what's on the horizon, short-term and long-term, in terms of what your long-term goals are and what your short-term obstacles are.
Yeah, remember, none of this is related to short-term. Short-term is, you can do anything short-term. You can save money short-term. We call it belt tightening. The reality is we're trying to get people to think differently about money and protect their future. And in order to do that, you have to look long term. You just can't sit back and go, it'll happen.
Long term is critical.
You
We
don't,
always
like
say,
you don't like talking about the short stuff.
well, we always say, take a shot at him. Go ahead. We always say in the seminars.
Well, he said belt tightening.
Yeah. He did.
I took offense to that.
Oh, okay. Well, so is you're making your own disclaimer then, or your own admission. How's that? We always say in the seminar, we're a short-term society. You know, Monday you're worried about getting to Friday usually. I kind of have that mentality when it comes to Monday morning in the office. But when you're thinking about finance, it's a 10-year, 20-year look. Those decisions that you make on day one have astronomical impact 5 and 10 and 15 years down the road. And that's what you really need to do when it comes to finance. All right, let me lay out the numbers for you for Phil and Sarah. Monthly income net is $8,000 a month. They have a first mortgage payment to Bank of America, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance of $2,000. They have a second mortgage with Chase, $500. They're paying $1,750 a month on those credit cards. Wow. They have student loans of $375 a month in a payment, car payments of $700, utilities $800, food $1,500. They also have 2 kids, miscellaneous $500. Their spending right now is $8,125 a month. They're $125 a month in the red on this budget.
So they're loading up on their credit cards every month. That little $125 difference. Probably spending more, paying down the credit card,
Right,
paying
maybe
it back,
1 month they're
billing it back
100
up.
up, maybe another month they're 300 behind.
So they don't have anything left in the bank at the end of
But
the
are
month.
they
is
really
what it
paying
comes
just
down
the
to.
Absolutely
minimums? Are they really paying just the minimums?
Oh yeah.
In this case, they're paying their minimums because let me give you the rest of their picture. Because that was their income and expense budget. Now let's look at their assets and their liabilities. The house is worth $200,000. The first mortgage is $225,000. The second mortgage is $50,000. There's $75,000 underwater in that house. The retirement account is $100,000. They've got an emergency fund of $2,500. Their total assets, net of the mortgage on the house, are $27,500. Credit card debt, $70,000. That goes to your question. That's why the payment's so high. $50,000 in the student loan. $5,000 in other bills, liabilities $125,000. They are negative $97,500 in their net worth.
And I'm going to tell you something, that's pretty common. It is not unusual to have somebody walk into this office and have their net worth, because of the value of their home and their how overextended they are, be down to a negative $100,000, $200,000.
Absolutely. If that house was worth $150,000 more 4 years ago, then their net worth it would at least be positive rather than negative. But you know what? It is what it is, and they need to analyze that situation now and make moves and evaluate how they can improve. And that's what we're going to do right after the break.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. All right, before we go through the analysis of what Phil and Sarah's options are, let me do announcements. We have a seminar coming up on January 13th called Fresh Start for 2015, focusing on how to preserve future income for you and your family. It's about figuring out the way of what you're spending on debt issues. Is your house underwater? Do you have rental property underwater? Or do you have too much credit card debt, which is probably the biggest problem and most common problem that people have. You got $40,000 of credit card debt, 20% interest, you're paying $8,000 a year in interest. You basically have to make $12,000 before taxes to be able to fund the $8,000. You're probably giving away 10% of your gross income to interest on credit cards. It's a bad situation. People get into the credit card trap because you know what happens. If you're taking all your extra money to make the payments on your credit cards every month, if you then have to buy something, what do? You put it on your credit card. So even though you're paying more than the minimum payment and the balances are going down, the balance goes back up because you don't have the ability to take other savings to buy things. When you need something, you put it back on the credit card. You never get out of that problem. We can get you out of that problem. That's what the seminar is about.
The seminar is also going to discuss a lot of problems dealing with tax issues and some new exciting things that are on the forefront with Michigan tax law, with the new offer and compromise program that's coming out for Michigan tax problems, and what you can do for the federal tax problems that you might be having, considering we're heading into tax season.
And better yet, you and Jenny are going to lead us through those issues at the seminar as well.
Absolutely.
If you want to sign up, the seminar is Tuesday, January 13th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Sign up for it at thavgross.com or lawandreality.com or call 888-235-HELP. We also have another seminar coming up, joint seminar with Pat Simasko, our elder law expert and sponsor on the show from Simasko Law. He and I are doing this seminar together on Thursday, January 29th, also at our offices. It's called 60++, What You and Your Parents Need to Know and Plan. The focus is on, if you're over 60, your parents are probably in their late 80s and 90s. Both of you need to take plans so that you look ahead of your retirement and say, how do I preserve assets? What if the nursing home problem is on the horizon for my parent or ultimately for me? How do I avoid all of the savings that I have going to pay for the nursing home so there's nothing left for my spouse or for my children when I pass away? How to preserve your assets. It's an important seminar. It'll be in our Bingham Farms office. You want to sign up for it. It's at, go to thavgross.com or lawandreality.com or call 888-235-HELP. I believe the time's going to be changed on that to actually, so it's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning rather than at night. So you'll have to check our website in order to be sure on that. We also have free reports. You want a free report on Social Security by Pat Simasko, go to ssifreereport.com. We have a free report on how Reg X, the hidden secrets on how to prevent foreclosure and obtain a loan modification that I put together. You want to obtain that report. It's free at regxhomesaver.com. You can also go to our website and have your financial analysis done with our financial crisis analyzer, all for free and all available. Just go to lawandreality.com. I want to thank our sponsors, Simasko Law, Thav Gross, Trips Auto Shop and Collision Center in Jackson and Lansing, U.S. Staffing in Jackson and Lansing. All right, now let's go back to Phil and Sarah. All right, we've got options, and there's two basic issues in play with the numbers that we put out there. In this segment, I want to explore, and Brian, I want you to lead us through debt resolution as an option, as opposed to a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is also a possibility, but we're going to save the Chapter 13 analysis for the next segment of the show. That's the part 2 of the plan. So when we say debt resolution, what am I talking about?
Well, we're talking about settling the obligation owed to the credit card companies or other lenders for less than full value, reaching a negotiated settlement for quote-unquote pennies on the dollar. Now, nobody can perform miracles in this world, but settlements range anywhere from 15 cents on the dollar to 60 cents on the dollar, depending on the type of lender.
How do you do this?
Well, the
Just
first
because they see Brian Small and they go, oh my God, I'm scared to death. We'll take 5 cents. Just don't bother us, Brian. We don't want you yelling at us.
that usually does work. That being said, from a more pragmatic aspect of it, what we're looking at is taking the credit
if that
cards.
works, why have you
I
done
know.
anything else? At 5%,
I know.
you can't do better.
They're scared of the BS.
Taking the credit cards and discontinuing the payments. Okay, we have to
stop
do
paying.
something to get the credit card companies' attention.
When do we settle?
The settlement times usually are anywhere from 5 to 14 months after discontinuing payment. What we try to do is create a plan of action for the client where we're going to try to get them out of debt anywhere from 12 to 24 months. If you look at these major quote-unquote companies that do this at 1-800-SAVE-MY-BUTT, as I like to say, they're setting the client up for a 4-year program.
It's impossible.
It is impossible because they're going to get sued on every single one of those bills within the 4 years.
And
Nobody
those
waits that
companies
long.
don't defend you when you get sued.
No, on page 38 of their retainer agreement, it says, by the way, we're not lawyers and we don't defend you.
All right, how do we address those issues? 'Cause I can tell you this much. Our retainer letter is only a page and a half.
And we are lawyers, and we do defend the action if you get sued, because the goal is to settle the debt. And when you have somebody on the other side to talk to, you can get a lot
So
done.
Ken, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is it's as much as an art as it is a science. On the one end of the spectrum, you could have the 1-800 debt settlement company that's going to try to implement a 4-year plan. They're going to try to get as much money as they can from you.
That's
to
right.
feed
They
feed their kitty.
They
They're
charge
gonna
an average
you,
of 18%.
They're going to charge you 18 to 20% or
Plus a
more,
monthly fee.
and they're not going to really do anything until they build up their war chest, which is really their own fees. And on top of that, the moment you get sued, they say, "Oh, well, we're not attorneys." The moment there's a question about taxes, well, you'd have to talk to your tax advisor.
Yeah.
Where, as you talk about an art form, we implement. Not only do we defend the lawsuits, not only do we provide the tax background, but on top of that, it's knowing when to push buttons with particular lenders and facts at particular times. When is it likely to charge off? When are you going to get the best deal? And that's the art to it.
And I like when you say more art than science, and I have that conversation a lot with clients as well. What it comes down to this is when you call those 800 numbers, they make it sound so simple and so automatic. The truth of the matter is it's not simple and it's not automatic, but what's important is that it works. And when it's done right, we're able to settle debt out at about 35% on average, plus a fee of 8.5%. You end up getting out of debt in that period, like Brian said, of 12 to 24 months. It works good. We're coming up to a break. When we come back, we're gonna walk through the analysis with Phil and Sarah, assuming we did debt resolution successfully, where they are.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. All right, when we came to the break, we laid out the notion that, the game plan is Phil and Sarah are going to settle their debt using debt resolution. And here's the assumptions, because I want to give you where they end up at the end of the game. And then we're going to compare this in the next segment of what if we used a Chapter 13 bankruptcy instead. Before I do it, I think that we want to clarify something from before the break. The industry in quote-unquote debt settlement charges 18.5%, typically 15 to 18% of the amount of the debt as a fee, plus a $90 or $100 a month maintenance fee. We don't charge that way. We charge a flat 8.5% of the debt. There's no monthly fees, so the fees are much less. When I mentioned 35%, that's the average settlement that we make with the credit card company on the debt. Sometimes it's 15%, sometimes it's 65%, but on average it comes out to be about 35%, and those are the numbers that we've built into these assumptions.
And what we see with these 1-800 companies is about a 50% on the settlement on the principal, plus
Higher than
18,
that, actually. Right.
50 to 60 plus 18% plus a $100 fee. At the end of the day, you could be paying up to 75% or even more of that debt.
And what Brian always says in our seminars is just don't pay the credit card company for 60 days and they'll call you and they'll offer to settle at 75%, which is just about true. Maybe it's usually about 90 days before they go there. The key is getting it down from 75% to 35%. That's where the work comes into
No,
play.
the key is
But I wanna get into
protecting
this.
your future by eliminating the debt any way possible.
I
Period.
completely agree with what you're saying. It's a good point. All right, some assumptions. I'm assuming in this analysis that the house appreciates at 4% per year, that their credit card savings, which is going to amount to $21,000 a year, after they've paid off the credit cards through the debt resolution, that they're going to earmark half of that money to retirement savings and half of that money to a cash reserve emergency fund. Now, the $21,000 that I said was the credit card payments, that represents annually $1,750 a month times 12 is the $21,000. If they take that $1,750 a month and they invest it at 5% over 5 years, that's worth $119,000. Half of that money to retirement would be $59,500. Half to emergency fund would be $59,500 if it was all available, but we're going to have to use some of it to settle the credit card debt. So here's what we ultimately have and where we end up with for Phil and Sarah. In 5 years later, before their house was worth $200, with the 4% appreciation, it's worth $240. The mortgage paying down from $225,000, making the mortgage payments, brings it down to $195,000, making their monthly payments with principal being applied. The second mortgage at that payment amount that they were making will bring the balance down from $50,000 to $30,238. So at the end of 5 years, their net on the house is going to go from negative $75,000 to positive $14,000 because we had some appreciation on the house. The retirement account was at 100. It's going to go from 100. The 100's going to grow to 128,000 based upon just earnings on the 100,000. Plus, you're going to add in the 59,505 that we are now earmarking into retirement because we're not spending it on the credit cards. Then we have to subtract from that the 30,450 that we spent to settle the credit card debt. At the end of the day, their total assets are going to go from 27,500 to what we estimate to be 234,158. What will their liabilities be? Their credit card debt was 70. It's going to be 0. The student loans are going to go from 50,000 to 36,290. That's making the normal student loan payments. Their other bills are going to were 5,000. We're going to assume that they've paid them off during that period. They'll be 0. Their liabilities in 5 years, they started at 125,000. They go down to 36,290. That's excluding the house. At the end of the day, their net worth in 5 years is estimated at 197,868. So then the question is, what's the difference? You add the two numbers, negative 97,500 plus the 197,868. They've improved their position. Their net worth has grown $295,368 in the course of that 5-year period.
There's also an additional difference, which is real. Being able to sleep at night.
And being happy, because all of a sudden when you're going to bed every night and you're saying, wow, I'm $100,000 in the hole and I have no money in savings and my credit cards are maxed out, versus saying I've got a reserve in savings, my retirement is growing, I'm making more money than I'm spending every month, you sleep a lot better at night. Before
you get
we
along
conclude,
with your
though,
kids better, you get along with your spouse
I've got
better,
some presents for you guys
feed the
that
dog.
I've been wanting to pull out and give to you.
Presents?
We have Law and Reality hats. And I just wanted to know that Brian took the lead on getting this, and we're going to start giving them away to callers in future shows. And I'm doling out the hats. You can have them in beige and you can have them in white.
Look at that.
It's a
Law and
nice
Reality
sleeve.
logo right there.
Thav
Thav Gross
Gross
right
on
on
the
the
back.
back. How fantastic is
Yeah,
that?
very
Why
nice.
don't you model that?
So this means golf is coming for everybody.
Absolutely.
Or, like I like to say, the beach is coming.
Oh,
How's
there we
that?
go.
Okay. All right. Enough with the hats.
You're definitely not a hat guy.
We got one more minute on the show today, and in the next segment of the show, we're going to take Phil and Sarah's situation, and instead of doing debt resolution, we're going to walk through it with Brian and say, what if they chose to do a Chapter 13 plan? Where would they end up in the 5 years? Because the key to financial crisis management is figuring out what is the optimal strategy to preserve future income for you and your family going forward. So the plan that costs you the least and allows you to save the most is the best. You're going to find when we go through it with Phil and Sarah, it's a close call between both particular plans, whether they do debt resolution or Chapter 13 bankruptcy. But I want to share the analysis so that the listener and the viewers can understand how the process really works.
And you don't
arriving
always
at the
have to
decision.
choose. You do not always have to choose the alternative that puts the most dollars in your pocket, but you owe it to yourself to identify
And we're
what's
on it.
out there.
Stay tuned for the next segment of Law and Reality.
Perfect.
All right?